Alright everybody, in this video we're going to be revisiting one of my favorite decks, and that is the Peter Pan Shadow Rush Challenger deck. And basically what this deck does is it aims to use Rush characters to get the effect off of Peter Pan Shadow, which makes them evasive, and then use the SHERE Con in order to get lore when you challenge, but also control your opponent's board. Of course, being on Amethyst, we are playing a number of control and draw cards, including the Merlin Mim package, which is by far the best package in the game right now. And then of course we're using some of the removal from Ruby as well. So overall, this deck surprised me, not really being as casual as I thought, probably being somewhere between the lower end of mid tier, I would say. But I haven't really lost all that much with this deck. It's proven to be very effective. So right here what you're seeing is me going up against Pawpsicle control. And when I played this deck, I talked about this many times over, and it's kind of why this deck fell off, is that you need to be able to play more effectively on curve with this deck. And while the opponent is ramping up, they have no mid-range, and as you can see here, I've been able to establish a board while they haven't. And this small questing pressure that I've been able to put on actually does make a difference when you move into the later stages of the game, especially since I'm on Amethyst and I'm playing the GOAT. Regardless though, you can see Ruby Amethyst also has a lot of card draw. And so despite the opponent being on Pawpsicle control, I'm actually outdrawing them with my Ruby Amethyst packages here. So we're going to go ahead and drop Dinner Bell, and our Mother Gothel was able to survive long enough that we could get the trigger on the draw 3, and our hand is just absolutely ridiculous. The opponent ends up dropping the Tamatoa, and their board looks a little threatening now, right? They've got the Scar, the Tremaine, both of them quest for 2, and they've got a Tamatoa, which is essentially a tank, a reoccurable engine. But when you're on Ruby, you usually don't care. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and take out the opponent's board and continue inking, and I believe we just passed turn here. The opponent's on 3 cards. It's only a matter of time before they get a Hiram though, right? And again, this is what I talked about in my own Pawpsicle control video. Your only draw engine is Hiram. It's 4 copies of the card in a 60 card deck. If you don't see it, you're basically dead in the water, and this is kind of what's happening to my opponent here. Their only option that they could have done better before I Tremained away their Tamatoa was use their Pawpsicle to draw, or sorry, to heal nothing, so that when they quested with the Tamatoa, they get it back and they get an extra draw off of the Pawpsicle. But in the end, it doesn't end up working out for them. We once again draw a Mother Gothel. The Dinner Bell package with this is just absolutely insane. We then drop the Peter Pan Shadow. I anticipate at this point my opponent has a Be Prepared in hand still, so I'm playing very cautiously. But this is the issue with this deck is now you're drawing your early game curve cards in your late game, and look at the state of the game here, right? Like, I'm just in total control. The opponent can't really do anything. I'm testing out this contract card, and I think it's actually half decent, but the ruling on the official app says you cannot use it to exert a character you just played while the ink is drying. So I have to use it on a character that's already existed for 1 turn on my board. So I couldn't use it on my SHERE Con there to tap down the Grammatala and then use Peter Pan Shadow to take out the Grammatala and also gain a lore off SHERE Con. It's totally fine though, so I made a small little misplay there to test out how the card was working. I think in Pixelborn you can still do it that way, but in the official app it says you can't, so obviously the whole purpose of Pixelborn is that we test for real life, and so I want to play the proper way. But you can see here, we're just going back and forth. Once again, Mother Gothel into Dinner Bell, 4 ink for draw 3, not too bad. We're going to go ahead and drop another Peter Pan Shadow, playing heavily now into the Be Prepared, but the opponent apparently doesn't have it. They Gaston, did they find it? We're going to go ahead and not draw anything, I guess, realizing that the game is over maybe. I don't know. We're going to go ahead though and look at this end game here. Exert down the Gaston, go ahead and drop double SHERE Con, and then Mim Fox takes out the Gaston that we exerted. Gain 3 lore from 3 SHERE Cons, quest for 2 with Peter Pan, quest for 1 with SHERE Con, ink the Mim, and then drop the Queen to challenge the Maleficent and win the game off the challenge. And just like that, SHERE Con was able to gain me up to 22 lore there, so 9 lore in 1 turn basically, which is pretty insane. 2 of it being questing from Peter Pan Shadow. In this matchup here, the opponent has a pretty threatening board, but once again, being on Ruby Amethyst, we have access to that Be Prepared, and we completely wipe out the entire opponent's board. They were ahead on board presence and on lore, and even on ink, but we were able to claw everything back with just a simple Be Prepared. Now we have total control of the match. We've got double Tremaine and a Maleficent ready to go for whatever the opponent might have. So at this point, being on Sapphire emeralds. I don't think the opponent really has a way to deal with this game state now. The game is essentially over, right? Because Let It Go's and Hades won't do enough. Yeah, the game is essentially over here. We're going to mim back the Peter Pan Shadow to take out the Mickey. This way we can now ink the Maui and drop the Tremaine to force the out on the Beast Relentless. And just like that, you can see the card advantage, the total control here. The opponent, again, can't really do anything. Yeah, they were on a interesting support deck for Alice, and they almost got their combos off if we didn't have that Be Prepared, right? So again, just goes to show you how powerful this color combination is. No matter what you run it with in this format, it's at least going to be mid-tier more or less. They top deck Genie, which is a pretty good top deck, but again, they can't really do anything. The Goat, when they out it, is going to gain me a lore too. We're going to go ahead and drop Maleficent, taking out that Genie, and then just continue questing here, because again, the game is essentially over. The opponent top decks yet another Genie, but what are they really going to bounce back? Nothing, right? Because anything they bounce back is pure advantage for me. So they just drop the Genie and pass. We're going to go ahead and Mim Snake back the Goat. We could have Mim Snake back the Maleficent and redropped it, but at this point, don't even care. Going to go ahead and Dinner Bell for 1. This is like, I'm not BMing or anything. I'm just seeing how the deck plays out, really. But like I said, there's nothing really that can be done here. We're going to move into the final match in just a second, and this one is kind of serious in terms of, you know, seeing it from start to finish. You'll see kind of how it plays out and how effective this deck can actually be sometimes. But yeah, the opponent ends up establishing a bit of a board at the end here, and one more turn and they might have been able to do some damage. Unfortunately for them, again, with the Amethyst package, you have Goat, and we even have SHERE and the Rush Peter Pan. So we can gain a ton of lore off the SHERE, right? Because double challenge into the Genie, or I guess we have nothing with Rush except for the Peter Pan to challenge the Genie, but it is what it is. In this final match, we're going to go ahead and mulligan away all of our high costing cards and uninkables, and we draw into another set of uninkables, so not great. We're going to see that the opponent reveals Steal and passes turn. We're going to continue to ink here, drawing into more uninkables. We don't even play that many. Again, deck list for this video is linked in the description. But now I'm a little bit worried that the opponent might be able to set up a pretty decent board here. Being on Steal, I'm not confident in playing the Mother Gothel, so I'm going to go ahead and ink it and hard cast the Friends in order to draw into more ink. The opponent finally reveals the Sapphire. I think that was the first Sapphire card they played. I could be wrong if they inked something and I missed it. But they're going to go ahead and quest with Cinderella and ramp up with Fishbone Quill. So whenever you see this combination, you usually assume a whole new world is coming at some point, and so the opponent aggressively dumps their hand in anticipation of hopefully singing that whole new world, or even just hard casting it if it gives them enough advantage. So our hand is pretty beefy, right? We've got a full grip, and a lot of it is uninkable, so there's not much we can do in order to try and dump the hand, so we might be susceptible to getting outplayed completely by a whole new world. And because of that, you see me overcommit here. Instead of dropping Contract, I opt to establish 2 characters on board, and it works out. As the opponent drops a Cogsworth, I can definitely now utilize that Lady Tremaine to completely out that warded Cogsworth. And we've got 2 decent cards on board, quest for 2, but the SHERE also gets me the lore when people are challenged. So they top deck Pawpsicle, they draw a card, they're going to ink a Bell, which is a very interesting decision, but I guess their hand, yeah, is just like uninkables or something, and they're just trying to ramp. Like, they have to have a whole new world, right? Like, you wouldn't aggressively dump your hand like this unless you had it. And so again, I'm just inking stuff, trying to keep up with the opponent here. Their top decks are pretty good though. This Tinkerbell puts in a bit of work, and I make a huge misplay here. It's like, why bother to be prepared here? I think I was just playing fast and not thinking. But yeah, obviously I don't be prepared there. I wait for the opponent to out the Tremaine, overcommit to the board again, and then be prepared. But I dump my whole hand, so I'm like, yeah, go ahead and whole new world. That's totally fine with me. But maybe they weren't playing it, or maybe they inked it with the Fishbone Quill thinking it wasn't worth playing. I top deck another Be Prepared, and I do not make the same mistake. I'm like, yeah, go ahead and continue playing out your hand here. And they're going to opt to drop a Cogsworth, so this is a decent spot to drop the Be Prepared, I guess. Still not ideal, but getting a Cogsworth off the field as well as a Tinkerbell is pretty good, especially when I don't have anything else. And I get the opponent to use their Pawpsicle. We top deck a Mim Snake, which can't do anything because if you have nothing to bounce back, the Mim Snake gets banished if you play it. Then on 8 ink, we top deck Maleficent, and this is insane because we're going to be able to play that draw card, drop the Mim Snake, bounce back the Maleficent, and then recast the Maleficent to draw 2 off of it in total, and end with 2 characters on board. Probably shouldn't even bother inking that second queen there. Again, still in the mindset of maybe they have a whole new world, but I really shouldn't be thinking or worried about that right now. I'm going to go ahead and quest for 2. And drop the dinner bell there. Sorry, I was yawning. And yeah, the opponent has another grab your swords, which they sing with Cogsworth, and then they drop the Hades to completely out my board, keeping me off the dinner bell. Again, I'm not too worried. I'm at 12 lore, they're at 1. They're going to go to 5 here, and you might think, well, Quantum, you've used 2 Be Prepareds already. But yeah, I have a number of different draw cards. I have a number of different rush characters. Obviously, this is a rush deck like Maui's and stuff, which I don't think I've really seen. And I top deck a Scar there, which is actually decent in this situation. I could have played Mim and bounced the Scar back to hand, which you see me thinking about here, or Dinner Bell the Scar to draw 2, but that would have kept their Hades on board. And again, I'm confident in the deck. I feel like my top decks could be pretty solid here. I'm just going to go ahead and take out your board with the Scar, go 2 for 1 and pass. And then I was like, oh yeah, you have Flavorsham. And yeah, here we go with the item draw and more items coming down. But I top decked the Lady Gothel, or sorry, not Mother Gothel, and that's an instant draw 3 for 4 ink, 2 to cast Dinner Bell, or activate Dinner Bell. Then I dropped a Goat and ink the Mim, I think, because I want to hard cast this Friends. Kind of resigning the fact that the opponent has a whole new world. I'm like, okay, I guess you don't have it. And I guess you didn't really need to play it in this deck with the Hiram Draw engine, but you saw how the opponent was on nothing for a while and how much advantage we were able to build up. The opponent is able to replenish their hand quite heavily though, and now they've dropped a Bell, which will quest for 4. So I'm going to go ahead and use Goat to challenge or quest. Okay, we're going to quest, use Mim to bounce back, gain a lore, probably crash into the Hiram, and then play Peter Pan's Shadow. Yep, take out the Hiram. The opponent questing for 4 with Bell is acceptable at this point because we are threatening game on board. 3 questing power with Evasive thanks to Peter Pan's Shadow on the Madam Mim Fox, and as soon as the Goat gets outed, which it does here with the Hades, we get another lore as well. The opponent can't deal with this, and that's 17, and that's a GG. If you like this video, a like would be appreciated on the video, and leave a comment in the comment section below on what you want to see me play next. Thank you again for watching. Quantum is out.